so we're going to do a review for epidemiology. This is going to focus on Module 16, your measures of frequency. Hopefully this video comes out okay. It might be a little bit dark. I'm playing around with the lighting here, but I noticed that if I shine too much light over here, then you get a reflection on the grease board. So bear with me. Hopefully you can at least hear me clearly. So to study, I have my book, which I have all my highlights in it. I have this sheet that is all the key terms. If you don't know where to find this, you go under modules, under lesson 0 for module 16. There's a review sheet for epi terminology. Hopefully you've used this and you've started this to help you form your study guide so that you have a single place with all of your equations on it and you know which terms were important for you to learn. And I also have here all the objectives for Module 16 so I can know what things I was supposed to learn for each lesson. For example, in Lesson 3 for Incidence, my objective was to be able to define, calculate, and interpret measures of incidence. Okay, so you can also find that under the modules page, Module 16, Lesson 0. So let's go ahead and jump right into your measures of morbidity. The two main measures that you learned were incidence and prevalence. So let's discuss each broadly so that we can understand what the difference between the two is. Incidence is the number of new cases. So this is a count that you get. And the important thing about incidence was that this is new cases. The denominator for incidence is your population at risk. Okay? So let's pause on what population at risk is because this is a little bit important. Gordis, in a fancy way, says that the population at risk are that people who are in the denominator have a chance to make it to the numerator. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if we're studying the incidence of prostate cancer, that person has a prostate in order to get prostate cancer. So that makes them at risk for getting that disease. Okay? If it's something that is an infectious disease example, they have to be at risk for getting that disease. So let's say that we're studying incidence of HIV. If the person already has HIV at the beginning of our study, when we're counting who is in our population at risk, then they're not at risk because they already have the disease. So you have to subtract out those people who have that disease. Okay. There were two different types of incidence that Gordis mentioned in the textbook and that you're expected to learn. I should mention up here that incidence, a synonym for incidence is risk. And I should also mention that with any of these formulas, memorizing this simple concept right here is what I think is best. Don't forget that with every single one of these formulas, whether it's the different incidence formulas or the prevalence formulas, you need to define the population. And you need to define the period of time. Okay, this is true for every single one of the formulas. For cumulative incidence, for incidence rate, for point prevalence, period prevalence, and your mortality measures. Okay, So let's discuss what the difference is between cumulative incidence and incidence rate. Because it's incidence, the numerator for both of them is new cases. Because it's incidence, the denominator for both of them is population at risk. So what's the difference? Well, what is a rate? A rate has time in the denominator, right? Just like miles per hour is your rate of how fast you're going in your car. You're gonna find time in the denominator. That's the easy way to figure out which calculation to do, is if you can calculate that person time. And remember, time will be a specified unit, so it could be person years, or it could be person months, it could even be person days, okay? So the biggest difference is that rate has a very accurately, as best as we can, time in the denominator. This doesn't mean that cumulative incidence doesn't have time, because we did specify the period of time that we calculated the measure for. It means that we're assuming we followed the entire population at risk for the entire specified period of time. This is often the case when it's not a cohort study, or it's not some sort of very specific research study where we enroll participants and we tell them that we're going to follow them up, month by month or every 6 months to see if they've gotten the disease or not. Because it's just not practical to follow up the entire population of California to see if they've gotten cancer or not. Now, our cancer registry is very, very good, and that we can definitely have diagnosed new cases, but we're really assuming that we're following up everybody from beginning to end. So this is it for incidence, and I'm going to take a second and erase the board so that we can do prevalence.